I never thought I'd return home under such circumstances. My father's death felt like a thread snapping inside me, a quiet severing I wasn't prepared for. The air in Ouagadougou was heady that morning, dust rising in lazy swirls, the sun already biting at my skin by mid-morning. I hadn't been home in over 2 years. Life and silence had created distance between me and everything that once felt familiar. My stepmother, Miriam, stood beside the casket like a stone. Regal in her mourning cloth, she didn't cry, not even once. She had always been composed, too poised, and maybe that was why we never truly connected. She married my father 5 years after my mother passed, but to me, she never tried to replace her, and I never offered her the chance. After the funeral, relatives and neighbors slowly disappeared. Plates were stacked, floors swept clean, chairs folded. The house felt emptier than ever. I sat outside on the low cement steps, the scent of burning she-wood lingering in the evening air. Miriam appeared beside me silently and sat down, her back stiff, her hands clasped in her lap. "I know you're planning to return to Bobo Dioulasso soon," she said, her voice low and careful. "But I want to ask you something." I didn't answer right away. I just turned to look at her, waiting. "Stay," she whispered. "Just for a little while. Help me handle your father's affairs. The land, especially. I can't do it alone." That surprised me. Miriam never asked for help, not even when my father was ill. She was the kind of woman who moved through grief with silence and duty. Something in her tone made me uneasy, but also curious. I had expected her to push me away, not ask me to stay. "Your father wanted the land and the village to stay in the family," she continued. "There's someone I trust who'll help too, Suleiman. He's been managing things these past months." Suleiman. The name rang a faint bell. I remembered a tall boy from long ago who used to come by with his mother. I hadn't seen him in years. "I don't know if I'm the right person for this," I said. Miriam looked at me then. "You're his daughter, if not you who." That night, I couldn't sleep. The quiet hummed louder than any city noise I'd known. I stared at the cracked ceiling and thought of my father. He'd always loved the village, its earth, its rhythm. Maybe Miriam was right. Maybe walking away would be easy, but wrong. By dawn, I had made my decision. I would stay for a while. I needed to understand what my father had left behind. But more than that, something deeper stirred in me, a feeling I couldn't yet name. A door I hadn't realized was opening. The road to the village was longer than I remembered, lined with dry baobab trees and sleepy goats chewing lazily in the shade. When we arrived, everything looked smaller, quieter. The house my father built sat in the middle of the land like a memory, solid, weathered, proud. It smelled like sun-warmed clay and old wood, the kind of smell that reaches into your chest and pulls. Suleiman arrived late that afternoon. He stepped out of a beat-up pickup truck, taller than I remembered, with kind eyes and the kind of calm presence that makes silence feel safe. He greeted Miriam first, then turned to me. "Welcome," he said, simple. His voice was low and soft, like the wind that rustles through millet fields. I nodded, unsure how to respond. Over the next few days, I followed him around the property, pretending I understood the rhythms of rural life. He showed me where the new yams had been planted, how the water system worked, how to listen for the health of the soil by the sound it made underfoot. It was peaceful, oddly comforting. We talked, a little, mostly about work, sometimes about my father, never about ourselves. One evening, he brought roasted peanuts, and we sat outside under the sky, the stars thick above us like spilled sugar. He asked about my life in Bobo. I told him about my job, my rented apartment, how I filled silence with podcasts and playlists because I didn't know what to do with my own thoughts. He laughed gently. "Maybe this place is good for you," he said. The next morning, I found myself looking forward to our walks. He had a way of explaining things that didn't make me feel stupid, just new. When he smiled, his whole face shifted, not in a way that demanded attention, but in a way that felt honest, familiar. Something between us started to shift, too quiet to name, but impossible to ignore. I told myself it was just gratitude or loneliness. That's what I wanted to believe. But then his hand brushed mine when we reached for the same bundle of dried stalks, and I didn't pull away. I held my breath instead, waiting to see what he would do. He didn't say anything, but he didn't move either. That moment settled between us, neither heavy nor light, just real. But not everything felt right. One afternoon, I passed by the open kitchen window and heard Miriam speaking to a neighbor. Her voice was low, serious. "Once it's sold, I'll be free of this burden," she said. My chest tightened. Sold? What burden? I didn't ask her. Not yet. I wasn't ready. Instead, I stared at the fields my father worked with his bare hands, at the sky that stretched endlessly above us, and wondered if I was being pulled into something I didn't fully understand. Something beautiful or dangerous. Maybe both. I found the papers by accident, buried in a manila folder beneath stacks of old documents in my father's study. The language was legal and cold property valuation, transfer intentions, a buyer's signature. My father's name was nowhere on the recent pages. Only Miriam's. The buyer was a development company based in the capital. The land was already in negotiation. My heart dropped into my stomach. For hours I sat there, the words burning into my memory. The soil my father cherished, the home he poured his life into, was being handed off like just another transaction. I waited until the house was quiet before confronting Miriam. She didn't look surprised when I held up the papers. Her eyes stayed steady, her voice composed. "Your father was gone." "I needed options," she said. "You lied?" I replied, the words dry in my throat. "You asked me to help you preserve his legacy, not sell it off behind my back." She looked tired. "You think I wanted this? That I wanted to be left with land I can't manage, with no support, no one to help me breathe again?" I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I just stood there, silent, wounded. "And Suleiman?" I asked. "Was he part of this too?" Her pause was too long. "He knew," she admitted, "but he thought you did too." The betrayal hit like cold water. The closeness I'd begun to feel, the trust forming in quiet spaces, now felt foolish. I walked out, not knowing where I was going, my pulse loud in my ears. I found him near the garden, watching the goats. He turned when he saw me, and something in my face must have told him everything. "You knew," I said. "I did," he admitted slowly. "I didn't know how to tell you. I was trying to buy time. I thought maybe I could convince her not to go through with it." "You lied by staying silent," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He stepped closer. "I didn't want to hurt you. From the moment you arrived, everything changed. I didn't expect to care this much, this fast. I thought if I waited, I could fix it before you found out." My eyes burned. "You should have told me the truth." No," he said. "I was afraid, but I was never pretending. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to unhear everything, to go back to laughter under stars and silent moments that felt safe. But I couldn't. I walked away, the sky too wide, the air too still. That night, I couldn't sleep. I thought of my father, of the way he used to hum while working the land, of how he looked at the horizon like it held answers. I asked myself if love could still be real when it came with betrayal, when it was tangled with silence and secrets. I didn't know the answer, but I knew I had to find it. By morning, something inside me had shifted. Not healed, not forgotten, just clearer. I found Miriam sitting alone, a faded photo of my father in her hand. For a long time, I didn't speak. I just sat beside her, the silence between us softer than before. When she finally looked at me, her eyes weren't defensive, only tired. "I didn't mean to erase him," she said. "I just dot. I didn't know how to survive without him. The land felt like a weight. I didn't think you'd care. You were gone. I didn't stop caring," I said quietly. "I just didn't know where I belonged anymore." She nodded slowly. He believed in both of us, even when we didn't believe in each other. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder with the documents. If we're going to do anything with this land, we do it right, together, not behind closed doors. For the first time, she didn't argue. Later that day, Suleiman returned. He stood at the edge of the yard, uncertain. I almost didn't go to him, but something in his stillness called me. He held something wrapped in cloth. A small leather journal, frayed at the corners. "I found it tucked behind a wooden panel in your father's room," he said. I thought, "You should have it." I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside were pages filled with my father's handwriting lists, ideas, sketches of irrigation lines, planting cycles. And on one page, a short note: "If I'm gone, I want the two women I love to stay standing. Even if it's not side by side, let it be forward, together." My throat tightened. He had known. Somehow, he'd known the cracks that ran between. U.S., and he still hoped for something whole. I looked up at Suleiman. "I wanted to hate you," I said. "But I couldn't, even when I tried." He stepped closer. "I should have told you everything. I was scared you'd walk away." "I almost did," I whispered. "But maybe it's time I stop running." He didn't reach for my hand. He waited, and that patience told me more than any apology could. I took a breath, then another. Slowly, I stepped closer. That evening, we sat with Miriam under the mango tree, going over plans not to sell, but to rebuild. A training center, maybe. Something my father once dreamed of. Something that honored the earth he loved. As the sun dipped behind the trees, I felt something settle in me. Not an ending, a beginning. My grief hadn't disappeared, but it no longer stood between us. It stood beside us. I had come home expecting only to mourn. Instead, I found unexpected love. Not the perfect kind, not the easy kind, but the kind that survives the truth. The kind that begins again.